This is Amy Fulmer, functional nutrition coach and Blue Diamond with doTERRA. I am so glad you are here for the second part of this class on fasting, and where we're going to be talking about fasting and eating to heal and fuel your body in a really simple, doable, sustainable way. So, if you remember in our previous class, we talked about what were the next steps, right? How can you ease into fasting? How can you do it in a way that you're going to have a positive experience, right? And it's not going to be causing your body to, increase cortisol and not work with the natural healing process of your body. And so it is really, really important. I just want to emphasize again to make sure that you are really not thinking, oh, I don't need to do that. If you have not done fasting before, please don't skip the step of doing partial fasting first, which we're going to be talking about in this class, and really taking some time and energy to focus and develop new habits in really eating in a way that fuels your body while you are on your fueling and nourishing days. So just one step at a time. Let's talk about ending your fast first. Just because this is kind of the continuation of the last class and we didn't get to talk about this there. This is really important when you start to get into your longer fasts. Now, when you're doing a 24 or 36-hour fast, even probably into a 48-hour fast, it's not as big of a deal as it is if you're doing a 3-day fast, right? A 72-hour fast or longer than that. That's where it's really, really important to be very intentional about how you end your fast. So if you're doing a shorter fast, it's important to still just start slowly. And it's really important to start with some hydration. Some bone broth is a really great way to end your fast. And again, we're going to start to prioritize protein, but we're also going to add it in gradually. Now, again, if it's just been 36 hours, you don't need to worry too much about that. And you can just go right into maybe eating some cooked vegetables and, an hour or two later, some sauerkraut or something fermented, some Greek yogurt, something like that. And then a couple hours later, then you can start to introduce some meat or something like that. Meat is just a little bit harder for your body to be able to break down and process. And so it's a good idea just when you're ending a fast, just to start with some, nourishing fluids and then some gentle cooked vegetables and then adding in your meats. So chewing well is actually really, really important in healthy digestion. And especially when you're, if you've done a longer fast, then your digestive process is just kind of waking up. It's getting used to eating again if it's been, 3 or more days. And so again, you're not going to be doing these longer fasts all the time. If you like that 3-day fast, you might do it a few times a month, but most of the time you might be doing something like this once a month. If you've done the partial fasting, which is what we're going to talk a lot about in this class, it's not as crucial, but again, always just ease back into eating. So really pay attention to your body. Pay attention to, again, those signals for hunger and satiety are going to be improving from your fast. And so really pay attention. I love that the Japanese rule of eat till you're 80% full. And then you can always eat a little bit more, a half hour later if you're like, oh, I'm still hungry. And if you have done that 3+ day fast, I would encourage you for 2 full days. So say you eat breakfast, you start a 72-hour fast, and then you come back and you eat breakfast basically 3 days later, right? So you've had 72 hours of fasting. That full day and the next day, I would encourage you to have more of like half-size meals and especially go easy on eating meat. And just because you'll be really gassy if you don't give your digestive system time to kind of wake up and kick back into gear. So please remember that, because otherwise you might be really miserable and not feel good and think, what is happening? So just remember that if you ever do a three-day plus fast, half-size meals for 2 full days worth of food, and then you can go back into and follow those same principles I just outlined, right? The broth, cooked vegetables or fermented foods, and then a few hours later easing into small amounts of protein. So it's very important also to know what not to do. So avoid the temptation to binge eat, especially if you have done a longer fast and you're like, okay, like I'm so excited to be eating food again, right? Again, your body will not feel good if you do that. And so just ease into it, follow the principles. You especially want to avoid sugar. If you end your fast with sugar, you go right back into sugar burning and you get out of ketosis and you don't have any continued fat burning benefits. And so I really love to end my fast and try to avoid having any sugar for at least a couple of days after I've ended my fast so I can continue to stay in ketosis, continue to help my body to be able to burn fat. Now, you don't want to stay in ketosis for forever, right? Your body needs to switch back into sugar burning. And so it's totally great to have some whole food carbs, some like raw honey or, whole food sweeteners, but really be intentional to try to wait a day or two before you do anything that's like going to be really sweet. Avoid having a giant heavy meal, right? Again, do not do that. And don't eat so fast, right? Just again, take your time and enjoy the experience of enjoying food again. So your refeeding part is part of the fasting process. And even actually in when you've done like a 5-day partial fast or a 3 to 5 day fast and you're starting to get some of those benefits of the stem cells, when you start to refeed, you continue to have some of those benefits continue. So make sure that you're doing it with food that's going to nourish your body. So let's talk about partial fasting, and then we'll talk about how you can really design and set yourself up for success with nourishing food in a really easy way. So if you remember, we had this slide in the previous class, but I'm going to put it here again for you guys to remember. This is what your partial fasting looks like, right? So again, no seed oils, no processed foods. These are the different, 46 grams of fats, 63 grams of whole food carbs, 18 grams of plant-based protein for around 750 calories or less on that first day spaced out between 2 or 3 meals. Again, pro tip, ChatGPT can really help make this easy for you. And then your days 2 through 5, these are the macros of what you're going to be eating. 29 grams of healthy fats, 60 grams of whole food carbs, and 12 grams or less of a plant-based protein. Again, no sugar, nothing processed. And that's what you can eat. And your body actually, by that second day, having had only 750 calories in these macros the first day, will start to shift into a fasted state. And those days 2 through 5, as long as you're following this, again, you're not grazing, you're not eating all day. You're doing and splitting these macros between 2 meals. And if you really need, you could, make allowances so that you maybe have one other like smaller snack or something to come to this total of macros. But just a reminder, so again, there's that QR code, scan that if you want to learn more about partial fasting from Dr. Walter Longo and some other great resources there. So again, you probably will not feel hungry. It's amazing. So let's talk about some more ideas and go into some meal plans and kind of look at what are you eating? What are you taking while you're doing your partial fast? So first of all, you are doing your supplements for sure. This is, again, really going to help avoid any nutrient deficiencies, any problems with not feeling good. While you're doing the partial fast, you could choose our Microplex VMZ, which we talked about in the last class. The fact that it's fermented, it really makes it so much more bioavailable and absorbable to your body and so comfortable and easy to take while you're fasting. And so you also could instead, we have another product called VMG Plus, that it's a green drink. You could do that with one of your meals instead of the Microplex VMZ if you prefer that. This is a less expensive option, but it's not as robust as getting all your greens and things in the VMG Plus. So if you want something more budget friendly, you could get this combo. It's the daily nutrient pack with the Microplex and the omegas. Or you could use your VMG Plus and then take the E omegas. And the VMG Plus, it's tastes delicious and is all whole food, vegan, bioavailable. We've seen superior absorption from clinical tests showing at the cellular level. Just to give you an idea, we saw about 100% absorption of the calcium in the cell versus looking at AG1, another very common multivitamin greens drink, something similar, but it's a lot of synthetic stuff, that had 9% calcium absorption in the cell. And so again, the bioavailability of whatever supplement you're taking and the purity is so, so important. So the Microplex VMZ is a great option, or you could opt for the VMG Plus. And then you also want to add in, again, the E omegas. That wild orange makes all the difference. The whole triglyceride form makes all the difference in it being more bioavailable. And you can chew this if you don't like swallowing pills. And then the PB Restore. So again, we're just really using this opportunity to help our gut microbiome shift for the better. And this is just going to help your body adapt and heal while you're fasting, because you're supported with some really powerful tools. Again, you're really, really going to want to make sure you're still doing the recharge while you're doing your partial fast. You could do any electrolyte. This is actually, if you compare it to most of the other top brands, it's actually a little bit less expensive. I think it's like $1.24 per, little sachet. And if you're ordering it regularly and you're getting a big discount back up to 30%, like a lot of people, then it's really cheaper than anything else out there. And you're getting the 4 of the most bioavailable types of magnesium. That's so important when you're in the fasted state, to be supplementing with that magnesium. Again, I like to dilute this double. And your ginseng, the sweetener is a great fermented stevia. So you're just getting really good, high quality things that you can trust. I just saw a thing where there was a lawsuit against, I think it was Element, because they had maltodextrin in their electrolyte, but they weren't listing it as an ingredient. And a lot of people can really have a blood sugar response to that. So again, just be a label reader and make sure if you are going to do something other than this electrolyte, make sure that it is a company that you can really trust, because I would have thought that was a brand that could have been trusted. And then we found out it wasn't, that they were withholding some things that were in the ingredients from being on the label. So I love the price point. I love the simplicity, and it's delicious. And we also talked about you can use the fiber. It tastes so amazing. Really helps to shift your gut microbiome. Amazing prebiotic ingredients. And it really is going to help you not be hungry, stay full. You could use this as a snack if you needed, if you were struggling with hunger. And then otherwise just have it with a meal, and it's fantastic. Okay, so let's look at what food you would be eating. And again, all those things would apply to fasting days, just water fasting, or to the partial fasting. So just that's why I put that in there to make that clear, that either one, you'll have a much better experience. And if you listen to Dr. Walter Longo and you look at his protocol, he says you've got to have the omegas. You've got to have, they use the, I'll come back actually. That's okay. Anyway, a lot of those things that I'm sharing there, those vitamins that we're supplementing with, he's like, you've got to have those when you're doing it. So, okay, partial fasting. So this is what your first day could look like, right? You could screenshot this, use it. These are all using things that you don't have to prepare ahead of time, that you don't have to cook. So I love the tomato basil soup from Costco. It is so good. They don't have it at all Costco's right now because we're in the summer, but they actually have it at our Salt Lake one. So just check with your local Costco's for, it's the Kirkland brand. Then it's delicious. Arugula I like. I don't have to slice. I don't have to do anything to prep. It's already washed, right? And then you're just literally slicing up your avocado and slicing up your apple if you'd like, and then giving that a nice little drizzle of your balsamic and extra virgin olive oil. So again, nothing you have to spend a lot of time preparing or making. With the roasted sweet potatoes, what I like to do is just get the bag of the frozen ones at the store and then throw them in my oven and roast them. 20 minutes later, you're all set to go. And it keeps really well in the fridge for quite a few days. And so you could just do up a bag and then do this meal a couple of different times. And you're not having to cook up sweet potatoes each time, right? But delicious, nutrient dense. And then there's all these ideas of what you could swap it out for on the bottom if you're like, okay, I don't want to have the tomato basil soup. Okay, well, here's other things you could swap it out for. Or I don't want to do the sweet potatoes. Okay, do it for some quinoa. These are things that will have similar macros that you could switch it out for. So just be really choosy about the kind of oil, again, that you're using during this. And if you're going to buy a pre-made, pre-packaged anything, be a label reader and make sure it doesn't have the seed oils. I know that the Sam's Club version of their tomato basil does have canola oil. So don't go with that one, right? You don't want to have those while you're doing your partial fast. Now, day 2, again, you can screenshot this one. Super simple things you already just have on hand that you can, just be able to prep and do very quickly. and not have a lot of cooking or preparation or something like that. So really simple, take a screenshot and we'll do one more day here of what it might look like, right? And this could be your your 2 meals. This looks delicious, right? And I was so surprised how I didn't feel full. So all right, so let's talk about some principles for fueling your body and healing your body with food that I just want you to start to learn to think about on the daily. And again, give yourself grace if you eat out a lot right now and you're used to buying and eating a lot of ultra processed foods. Start with doing the partial fasting, ease into that, and then as you're being intentional about your eating days, just I would say do one thing at a time, right? Focus on breakfast. I'm going to work on getting healthy habits for breakfast. And then once you've gotten that down, then you can start to do some other principles. But one of the main principles that's so simple is having your veggies first, even at breakfast. And this is where, you guys, having those pre-prepped veggies in the fridge is a game changer. If you're like, oh, I have to cook that or I have to chop all that and wash all that, like it's just probably not going to happen, right? But if you're like, I can pull the arugula out, it's all ready to go. Or I already cooked up a whole batch of green beans and I'm just going to warm those up. Or I already sliced up some cucumbers. I've got some baby carrots. I can pull those out, right? Just, I love, I try to stick with vegetables. I'll talk about this later, but that can be ready in like 3 or 4 minutes or less, right? So really fast is what we're going for because we all know when you're hungry, the last thing you want to do is make and prepare vegetables. Okay, after you've had your veggies first, and it is a habit that it just takes some time to develop, then I want you to focus on getting the clean protein. And that's going to be 25 grams per meal minimum. And clean meaning look at the sourcing, and we'll talk about this some more. But, so grass fed beef, pasture raised eggs, you really want to avoid like deli meats are typically they're ultra processed, they're loaded with different chemicals and preservatives, and so again we want to have things that are clean, that are without the additives, without all the chemicals, and then last you can have those whole food carbs. That's where we want your carbohydrates coming from, is not ultra processed things. And again, do I ever eat a slice of pie? Absolutely. It might be like once a week though, right? It's not on the daily that I'm choosing to put that ultra processed food into my body, right? And so it's great as you start to shift this and you realize I'm full from whole food. You actually feel good and it becomes easier. And be patient because you're not going to be perfect. And you keep getting back up and trying again when you like, oh, I totally blew it, right? That's okay. You keep trying and it's a journey, right? So you don't need to have those carbs at every single meal, but having those whole food carbs last. So your fruit, your starchy vegetables, whole grains. Again, whole grains, not bread is not a whole grain, right? Even if it's made with whole grain flour, it's flour. And then for treats, allulose you can use on occasion. It actually increases your GLP-1. Fermented stevia, monk fruit, all of those, I just like to say be very sparing with, because it just seems like from research, we eventually find out like regular stevia, they were showing in a study was having an issue with causing some bladder issues. And I had always, learned there's no problems with stevia. Everything's great. Erythritol, originally they were thought everything's great with it. And they found out later it was, linked with some heart issues. So when it comes to natural sweeteners that are very processed, like allulose, monk fruit, the fermented stevia is better, but just in moderation, and don't be doing that at every meal or like every single day, right? Just try to have those things in moderation. So raw honey and dark maple syrup. There are different grades of maple syrup: amber, dark, and very dark. So dark or very dark maple have a lot more antioxidants and nutrients. Sam's Club has a great dark maple. Costco's is amber, unfortunately, so not quite as good. And then the raw honey, it actually affects your body differently than regular honey. So you've got the enzymes in it. You've got natural antibiotics. It has a different effect on the blood sugar than having regular processed honey. And so if you're going to opt for sweeteners on occasion, right? Like in the morning, I love to put a little bit of raw honey in my plain Greek yogurt, and that just makes it delicious to me, right? But again, I'm not doing that every single meal in large amounts, right? Okay, and so the order of eating your food in that way can make a huge, huge difference in the way it affects your blood sugar and thus your insulin. So just this one habit of starting with, okay, I'm going to work on my food order. I'm going to work on having veggies at every meal. and I'm going to work on just trying to eat my food in this order is a great step in your eating food healing journey. All right, so the next rule that I like to share is just eat your food in the form or sourced in the way that God made it. Meaning, God did not make it so that cows are like cooped up all day and have antibiotics and hormones and chemicals in their bodies and in their feet. He didn't. And so that is how all meat is in the US, unless it is grass fed. And when it's grass fed, then it doesn't have the hormone pump in its ear. It doesn't have all those chemicals and all of those things. It's able to walk around and eat grass like cows are supposed to do. So that's what I mean by sourced in the way that God made it. Chickens are not meant to be in a cage their entire lives, fed food full of junk, right? They're meant to like run around and eat worms. And so that's why pasture raised, grass fed meats. And when you are using grains, again, it doesn't come in nature in flour, right? And if you are going to use flour, try to go for stone ground, which means it's not as refined. It's a larger size of the grain that it's ground into. So just you want to go for whole as much as you can, or close to whole, like still cut oats rather than rolled oats. Sprouted increases the nutrients and makes them more digestible. A lot of Costco even has they have sprouted oats now, sprouted pumpkin seeds. And again, that just makes it more digestible. Fermenting things also increases their nutrients. And just again, unrefined or as little refining as we possibly can. The biggest principle here is starting to be a label reader, okay? And I am so surprised. Like, I was buying cottage cheese and I just didn't even ever think like, could there be something in my cottage cheese besides cottage cheese? But yes, there is carrageenan, which is it really messes up your gut lining, and it's kind of considered like an emulsifier that can make it so you're more likely to have leaky gut, if you've heard of that. And so again, just even those things that you think this is just its own food, it's not. There shouldn't be a list of ingredients on the label. Read it and see. The Daisy brand from Costco does not have the carrageenan in their cottage cheese. Just FYI. Anyway, so just anything you're buying and putting in your cart, just look at the label and make sure it doesn't have additives, preservatives, and all the junk added, right? It should all be just normal, real food of things that you recognize. And avoid all things artificial. So many health foods out there, you guys, are loaded with artificial, ultra-processed junk. So the sourcing of your food is as important as the food itself. When you eat regular beef with the hormones and chemicals in it, we know that is linked with heart disease. It's causing lots of problems. But when you eat grass-fed beef, then we don't have those problems. So same thing with the eggs. They're inflammatory when they are from normal processed eggs, where the chickens are never able to eat worms and run around, right? But when they're pasture raised, they're anti-inflammatory. So the sourcing, one thing could be unhealthy or healthy depending on how it's sourced. So just, if you can just remember, grass-fed, pasture-raised, and the more whole that, whatever it is, the better, right? If you're getting almond milk or raw milk, try and get an almond milk that doesn't have all the preservatives in it, because otherwise, again, you're just putting artificial stuff in your body that is not helpful. And we have so much research that shows that. So, all right. So your eating days really matter. So again, we're going to do meals over grazing all day, because we want to give that insulin a break from having to be produced versus if we were grazing all day. 25 grams plus minimum of protein per meal. I mentioned that, but I cannot emphasize that enough. It does take some intentionality at first, and I'm going to give you some ideas of how to do that easily. Again, always going for whole foods, avoiding ultra-processed foods as much as you possibly can, and slowing down while you're eating and not multitasking. The research actually has shown your absorption can go down by as much as 60% if you're multitasking while you're eating. If you're driving, you're working, you're, trying to do something else. So just being present, slowing down. You cannot outfast unhealthy eating patterns. So if you're fasting and then you're eating junk on your fueling days, you're just not going to see a lot of healing in your body that is going to be lasting. And so this is so, so important to address and to focus on. So why healthy foods still spike hunger? Well, a lot of health foods really are ultra processed, right? Again, as you read those labels, you'll see all sorts of synthetics and chemicals added to so many things that are touted as natural, healthy, diet, right? Like all those things. So just start to recognize that. Seed oils is one of the worst things you can do. We know now from research that they will stay in your cells and can cause your cells to have like toxins stored in them for over 6 months, well over 6 months from when you consume the seed oils. Okay. It's like stuck in your cells and it's really hard for it to get out of the cell. And then that's causing problems in your cellular function to the point that we now know that it is linked with type 2 diabetes and contributing to that. So we used to think it was just the sugars and the carbs, but we now know it's the canola oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, vegetable oil. All of those seed oils are actually contributing to type 2 diabetes, which is why if you eat out, it's so hard because almost every restaurant uses seed oil. So there are some that don't. And so you just have to kind of Google it, look around. We were just thrilled. My daughter loves the refried beans from Rancheritos Mexican, and they use lard in their refried beans instead of canola or soybean oil. And lard is a great, healthy, natural animal fat that has been used for centuries in populations where they didn't develop any of the heart disease that we have in our society. So artificial sweeteners, you guys, there is so much research now. We know that it actually causes you to eat more. It throws off your hunger signals, your leptin levels, and so that's one of the problems with artificial sweeteners. The other problem is it disrupts your gut microbiome and also starts to throw that off. And so it's just not worth it, right? Shift if you're in that habit. That's a great one to start to shift away from and to try to replace it with just whole food and filling up on other things so that you can overcome that. Anyway, yeah, remember, healthy marketing is not the same as healthy for your metabolic health. And there's a lot of foods that even have chemicals that make it so you overeat. And so, and again, the more you have those blood sugar swings, if you're eating these ultra processed foods, if you're eating the artificial sweeteners, the more that you're going to feel hungry more and more. And that just makes it so much harder, right? So it's really important to start to be aware and be very intentional and knowledgeable about what you're choosing to bring into your home and into your body. So I love these this next couple slides. They're ones that you can screenshot. A friend of mine, Jessica, shared this with me, and I loved how succinct it was. So take a screenshot of this. And there are just some principles, right? Always hydrate first. It's going to help you. A lot of hunger is just actually thirst. So you're going to eat less. Your body's going to do better if you hydrate first. And again, veggies first, protein. And again, some ideas of that food order and just these daily non-negotiables, right? It's a lifestyle habit. But just take a screenshot of that and it's a great all-in-one. There's one more that she did that I thought was so great. Here's the other tip, okay? Remember how I talked about like when you're hungry, the last thing you want to do is cook some broccoli, right? Is cut some broccoli and cook some broccoli. And so having things in your fridge that are already ready to go is key, right? I have found I don't really like reheated cooked broccoli. If you like raw broccoli, you can go for that. I don't really care for raw broccoli. But having some really quick vegetables in your fridge that are ready to go, like arugula, salad greens, we'll talk about that next. And then having some really quick, ready to go proteins. The last thing you want to do is get a chicken breast out of your freezer and have to cook it up when you're hungry, right? Like nobody wanted to do that ever. That's why we like fast food so much. So what I like to do is I'll have a prep day where I'll just take a couple of hours and prep quite a few of my family's favorite healthy proteins. And then I just have those in the fridge. And that way, when we're hungry and I was running around doing too much that day, it's like, okay, it's okay. I can pull my hard-boiled eggs out of the fridge. I can pull the protein pancakes out and warm that up for breakfast. I can pull out the quiche, the crustless quiche. We can warm that up. And so just having things prepped. Whole fat Greek yogurt is one of the things we eat the most often because it's just so fast. It's satisfying. It's nourishing. Lots of protein in there. My favorite brand is the Better Goods brand. It is I want to say it's 15 or 16 grams of protein and it's full fat. You don't want to go for the low fat. When we look at the research on the effect of dairy on blood glucose and insulin levels, I actually was reading a study where they found that there was no correlation to improved blood glucose levels or waist circumference with low fat dairy, but there was a great correlation with full fat dairy. And so people who had full fat dairy had better blood sugar levels, insulin resistance, or I should say insulin sensitivity, and they had lower waist circumferences. And so again, how does it affect the body as a whole? Did God make cow's milk to not have fat in it? No. And so yogurt should not have fat in it, right? What is the form that God gave it to us in? And that always holds true for how it's best for our bodies, as he knows what he's doing. So anyway, having some, I love the lentils from Costco that you can warm up in a minute. They're the Madras lentils. Or I'll do some beans in my Instapot, and then they're in the freezer, and I'll have a couple in the fridge. Those won't keep as long, but you get the idea, right? Of just having some things that you like, that you can prep really quickly and easily one time in the week, and then have a variety of options in your fridge. And maybe you need to put a little note on the outside of the fridge to remind you of those options when you're hungry. But this would be a great one to use, right? And it just says, okay, here's some breakfast options. Pick a few that you love, right? Here's some lunch options. Pick a few that you love. If you click here, these are some of my favorite recipes that my family loves. And I will tell you, I have served all of these things in this recipe file to lots of large crowds. And almost always people ask for the recipe. They love it. It's very like tried and true recipes. So we've got things from breakfast to main dishes to desserts in there that you're going to love. So I'm really excited to share those recipes with you. And then, yeah, we'll talk about some more ideas with vegetables, because that's one of the key ones where I think if you're new to eating a lot of vegetables, you really need to be strategic in making some changes and making it easy. So, but again, just remember those tips. The consistency beats intensity, right? Progress over perfection. So just don't give up. This is a journey. It's not going to be done next week, right? But over the course of months of continuing to focus on learning new habits, learning new ways of thinking, doing a little bit of prep and planning so that you're set up for success is going to go a long way. So these are my favorite fast, ready to eat, nutrient dense veggies. I will say the cucumbers don't quite fall into nutrient dense, but I put them in there anyway because they're so beloved by everybody. But avocados are some of your fastest ones. So I like to have an avocado a day. There was actually a recent study that came out that showed that people who were insulin resistant, if they ate an avocado a day, after the course of a couple of months, their insulin levels improved significantly compared to the control group that didn't eat an avocado a day. Now, there were no changes in their diet. They did nothing else other than just add one avocado into their diet every day, and they saw significant improvements in their insulin levels. You guys, that's huge, okay? And that on avocado is like the fastest vegetable ever. I love it with everything bagel seasoning, with some salt, on some eggs, on a salad, in a tomato yummy tortilla soup. Like, there's so many ways you can enjoy avocado. I didn't even like avocados before 2 years ago, and I just started forcing myself to eat them, and now I love them. So arugula is one of my favorites, nutrient dense, spring mix. And what I love to do with those, you guys, is I will just drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of raw apple cider vinegar, which is amazing for your insulin levels and blood sugar. And then, or some like fresh lemon, or the Trader Joe's not from concentrate lemon. And then just a little tiny drizzle of raw honey. I'll throw some feta on there, or some pumpkin seeds that are sprouted. Again, no chopping, right? Nothing requires the extra steps of doing lots of preparation. So they're all just things I can throw in there that are healthy and quick. And then just some salt and pepper. It's delicious. And in fact, if you add a couple drops of lemon essential oil or wild orange, it kind of brings it to the next level and makes it so good. So that's one of my most common go-tos that just feels so good. Extra virgin olive oil is so healing for your gut lining. And those healthy fats are just so crucial for your hormones, for your blood sugar, for your skin and your brain. So anyway, so those are some of my favorites. The shredded cabbage is another one that I just love. I didn't used to ever eat this, and cabbage keeps so well. If you're on a budget, definitely go with the shredded cabbage. And I'll just buy ahead. Again, during my prep time for the week, I will just cut it up myself and do it just in little shreds. Put it in a couple of glass jars in my fridge, or you could use Ziploc bags if you wanted. And it's great fresh, like as a salad, or I love to steam it for about 3 minutes with just like a tablespoon or two of water, a few cups of cabbage, some salt, and a little bit of butter. It's so good. I have it as my breakfast vegetable all the time. Sauerkraut or kimchi, really, again, already ready to go. Start small with that because it's a lot of probiotics there that you don't want to overdo it. It might be too much. So start with just a couple tablespoons. You could work up to maybe having a quarter cup, but you don't want to have more than that because it's very concentrated. But having these things in your fridge, ready to go, realizing, okay, it's going to take me 4 minutes to broil the asparagus with a drizzle of olive oil and salt and pepper and garlic if you want, right? These are all things that can be ready within 4 minutes. And 4 minutes is not very long, right? And if you're really impatient, go for the avocado, go for the baby carrots or the cucumbers, right? If you don't even want to wait the 4 minutes. All right, I do want to include about this here because having support for cravings while you're trying to shift your habits and your patterns and your diet is really helpful. And MetaPower oil is one of the best things that I've seen to help support people in this shifting journey, right? So they have it in soft gels. They also have it in a beadlet or in the oil. You can just do a drop, in your mouth or in your water, or pop a beadlet when you're struggling with cravings. And it can really help you to make better choices in your food journey. And then when you are going to eat any kind of carb, again, just taking that MetaPower Assist really brings down the blood sugar spike and helps your body deal with that a lot better, again, on occasion. All right. Lastly, I want to talk about exercise when fasting. Can you exercise when you're fasting? Yes and no. So yes, at the beginning of your fast, you can do some high intensity exercises. You can do weight training, which is why I love starting with a breakfast for the fast, right? It's really ideal if you're insulin resistant, but then it also allows you to have a great workout that day. You can do some weightlifting and things like that. Ideally, 30 minutes after you've eaten your 25 plus grams of protein, women will build the most muscle. Creatine, I mentioned that one before on one of the slides. Really, really helpful to have before or even also after your workout, and it will not break your fast. So yes, that's the only time that I would say while you're fasting to have intense exercise would just be right after you started. And then at the end of it, and also I will say the high intensity, which would be high intensity at training, is when you might say you're on a bike, 30 to 45 seconds, you're pedaling as fast as you possibly can. And then you have a couple minutes break. And then you do, another round of 30 or 40 seconds. Maybe 4 or 5 or 6 of those would all be a great high intensity workout. Now, if you do that at the beginning of your fast, it's actually going to help you get into ketosis much faster. So if you're doing fasting as one of your goals is to change your insulin resistance and to help use stored body fat, I really recommend using that strategy of doing that short, high intensity training 30 minutes after you've had your breakfast and you've started your fast. And it's a great, great way to speed up and have that fast be even more effective. Another thing is the strength training. So lifting weights, again, only right after you started. Right after you end your fast, again, 30 minutes later, that's a great time to do strength training, the high intensity, but we want to make sure our body has plenty of protein fuel and creatine before those workouts. So you can totally walk while you're fasting. It's actually going to be really healing, really helpful. Nice brisk walk, getting that heart rate up is fantastic. And great during those longer, especially if you're doing a 3-day or a 5-day partial fast. Just going for a walk is a great way to just, again, de-stress, keep things moving, and feel great while you're fasting. So, I did say avoid overtraining during longer fasts, right? Again, so you're not going to be doing it on those days. If you're doing a 48-hour fast, that second day, you're not going to be doing any strength training or high intensity. You're just going to be doing walking if you want to do that. So, okay, fasting is not always recommended. And I'm just going to reemphasize again when not to fast. If your cortisol is abnormally high, so meaning you're super, super stressed, you're just on edge, you're waking up in the night and your mind is like racing, you're deeply grieving. Those are all times when your cortisol is very high. And again, we know that if you're doing a longer fast, you can actually raise your cortisol higher if you're starting off like that. And so we want to have the cortisol come down. We want to come out of fight or flight before we start to fast or do a longer, 36-hour plus fast. And so listen to your body is the key, right? Take the time to tune in and how am I doing? And if you're dizzy when you stand up, your adrenals are probably overworked and stressed. Tulsi is a great, great oil to apply over those adrenals to give it some extra support. And that's where supplementation can really help. But just again, if you're noticing these things, it's probably not the right time to fast yet. Give your body some more nurturing, do some more work to, meditate, be in gratitude, come out of fight or flight before you start doing a longer fast. And then during the last phase, if you are a menstruating woman, days 20 to 27, 28 of your cycle, so basically up until your period starts, that last week and a half, it's better because of how your hormones to avoid fasting in that week. And it's nice just to kind of have a break, right, from fasting. So listen to your body. It knows what's best. If you are perimenopausal, again, you're more likely to be in some of these states. So especially pay attention to that and and tune in. And then if you're menopausal, then some people will cycle with the moon or things like that to help have some fluctuation in their fasting. Again, that variety is important. All right, so a few things about just what to expect on this journey. And so we talked about the glycogen weight. Now that can be, and then you've got the water weight too. And so in the average person with your glycogen and water weight, that could be 2 to 4 or even 5 pounds. And so do not be alarmed if you do this wonderful 5-day fast, or you do a 3-day fast, or a 48-hour or a 36-hour fast. And then you're like, oh, yay, look, I lost 3 pounds. And then you get back on the scale after you start eating healthy food. And you're like, what? I gained back 2 pounds. That is likely water weight and glycogen weight. So don't stress out about that. It's all about the progress, right? And for me, a daily weigh-in is a really healthy way that I have accountability for myself, and it helps me be more mindful in my food choices. Some people prefer like doing a weekly accountability for themselves. Like whatever is gonna, again, the mindset is so important that you're not stressing. So you want to make sure you're doing what is going to help you be not in a stress state and in a place of just celebrating progress, having gratitude, and focusing on healing, right? That's the whole goal of this process. So fluctuations are normal in the process. It's about the journey, right? When you go on vacation, right, you might need to have some adaptations. Be very intentional with walking after a meal when you're on vacation to help bring down that glucose response and the insulin response. Maybe you want to do dinner earlier a couple of the nights on your vacation. Push your breakfast out till 10 or whatever. But just be flexible and realize, for me, when I'm on vacation, I love dessert. It is just such a joy to me. So I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to enjoy the appetizer. And now I do try to say, can you bring the hot bread at the end, right? Like I try to still keep with some of these principles and still enjoy all the things. And then when I get back, I might need to do, a 48-hour fast, which is no big deal, to help my body use up that extra storage. That's totally fine. But now what's so exciting is I am empowered with what's going to help my body heal. And it doesn't mean I have to be perfect all the time, but that I can enjoy things on occasion, and I have the tools to help my body get back on track, right? And help my body use up that extra storage to help fix that, the effects of maybe a little bit of extra insulin that happened on that trip. And again, consistency matters way over perfection. And remember that your body is adapting over time. And just to give you, just an idea, again, you might decide that alternate day fasting of I'm going to eat all one day nourishing food, I'm going to just fast the next day. That is easiest for you. Or you might do that twice a week, where you do 2 36-hour fasts. Or you might want to do a 48-hour fast once a week and then a 36-hour at the end of the week. So again, this is while you're in the healing space. If your cholesterol is high, your blood pressure, your insulin, all those things. Once you get to where all these levels are normalized, that's when it's like, okay, I'm doing my partial 5-day fast once a year. And I'm going to utilize this for vacation. And then I'm going to end my eating window by 6 most nights, right? That's kind of what maintenance looks like. But until you get to where your body has healed and it's in the place of like thriving, abundant health, this might be a 6 month to a year and a half journey, right? It's something that's not going to happen overnight. This needs to be sustainable for your body to heal and change. And so realize that this is going to be a journey. And those temporary fluctuations do not erase the long-term progress. So lastly, your mindset changes everything. Okay. Again, if you're stressed, if you're negative, if you're thinking, oh, I'm so deprived, I hate that I can't eat this. Why can't I be like those people that can eat whatever they want, right? If that's what your thinking is, you're always going to stay stuck. You're never going to get out. But if you're thinking, I'm so grateful that I can nourish my body with healthy things. And I love this idea from Dr. Jason Fung, burn, baby, burn. When I get those hunger pangs on the day one of my fast, right? I love to think, oh, I'm so excited that my body is going to use this extra fat here instead of what's on that plate for energy and fuel. This is awesome. Burn, baby, burn, right? So just shifting your mindset to one of gratitude and to positivity and focusing on, I'm so grateful that I get to learn how to nourish my body. It just changes everything, rather than when you're in that scarcity mindset of like, I can't have this, I can't have that. This is so annoying, right? Like that is going to increase cortisol, and that is going to stop your progress. And so be very intentional about your mindset, your identity, right? Who are you becoming? Are you thinking like someone who's healthy? Are you thinking about, I value and care for my body because I want to be around for my grandkids and my great grandkids. And so my identity is, I care about myself, and I care about taking care and stewarding the body that God has gifted me. I love the book Atomic Habits. Again, just those small changes and pairing things with other habits you already have are powerful. What are your stories? What stories about food are driving your choices? Like taking a look at those food beliefs. I really like this episode from the Fasting Method podcast. It's one of my favorites, on the mindset around eating. So it's a really great one. And then lastly, again, remember, those small wins matter, and that this is a journey. It's not overnight, but these are some of my favorite resources. So I love, like I mentioned, the Fasting Method podcast is a great resource. I love the Essential Guide to Intermittent Fasting. For men, Metabolic Reset is a good one. Another one for if you're in menopause, the Menopause Reset is a really good one. So you can click this QR code. There's a lot of additional resources there that should be really helpful for you if you're wanting to really make this tool, this free, simple, time-saving, affordable tool, a part of your healing journey. So just as a reminder, follow the steps, right? And learn to swim, learn to ski, right? Don't just jump in the deep end or go down the giant slope. Ease yourself into this so that it's sustainable, so it's not overwhelming. Because if you try to do it all at once, you're probably going to give up because you'll be overwhelmed. But if you can master each step at a time, you will eventually get there. And again, I already shared these resources, but just so you have them again, if you'd like to join our Telegram support group, or this class was a lot of great principles around how can I shift my eating patterns? How can I make this sustainable? How can I think about food differently? The Revive in 45 Metabolism Reset is just such an incredible resource. It's $45, 45 days, and we've had countless people on our team have really incredible results of helping their bodies heal, reducing the inflammation, and learning sustainable habits of really nourishing and fueling our bodies. So thank you so much for joining us. We are just so grateful for your just time with us today, and so excited for your journey of getting to help your body heal and learning how to fuel your body to heal on the days that you're eating. And just happy fasting and happy fueling.